We want to say thank you for listening. So our sponsors have given some great deals in this episode. Check these out. This episode of the Real Rescue Podcast is brought to you by Breeze Eastern, the world's only dedicated helicopter hoist and winch provider. Axness, because when lives are at stake and conditions are challenging, clear communication is of the utmost importance. And SR3 Rescue Concepts, because you don't know what you don't know. Breeze Eastern, they dedicate themselves to our helicopter rescue world. Since the very first helicopter rescue in November of 1945, Breeze Eastern has designed and manufactured superior rescue hoist solutions. While much of the technology and the unique mission requirements have changed over the past 75 years, their commitment to the rescuers, the operators, and those being rescued has not. Contact them today by visiting them at breeze-eastern.com. The Axness PNG wireless ICS system can bring cutting-edge wireless intercommunication system technology to any aircraft. The PNG system can be fully integrated into an existing ICS system or can be carried on and off as a mobile base station. They can go anywhere at any time on any aircraft. Plus, with the strongest and most robust waterproofed handheld on the market, this system can take a hit and keep working. Their wireless intercom systems are designed to enhance situational awareness through improved communication capability. This system brings superior noise canceling technology to eliminate rotor wash and engine noise from your ICS. The Axness PNG wireless system is currently deployed in more than 1,800 public safety, air ambulance, and search and rescue aircrafts worldwide. I have personally used the Axness system in 4 different countries and on 5 different airframes. It is awesome. If you want more information, contact them today at axness.com. That's AXNES.com. You just make sure you tell them Quinny sent me. And SR3 Rescue Concepts is a training company that can help with your helicopter training, a standardization and safety check, or maybe just an audit or an FAA refresher. They are here to bring your agency up to date with the most current techniques, rules, regulations, and equipment. The training staff is awesome. With a certified flight instructor pilots, experienced crew members, which I am happy to say that I am one of them, they offer training in rescue, medical, tactical, firefighting, ground operations, and night vision goggle use. SR3 is also partnered with Petzl to assist with personal protective equipment and the highly specific Lazard. SR3 also goes beyond the helicopter world as they provide high-angle rescue training and tactical medicine training. Contact them today at sr3rescueconcepts.com or over on Instagram at SR3_rescue. Coming up next, we've got a couple guys from the Army who come to us with an amazing story of the Creek Fire in California that wreaked havoc on California. So these guys went in and saved a whole bunch of lives, and they are here to tell their story. Amazing. So please welcome our next guest, the 2 pilots in the Chinook, Mr. Joe Rosamond and Mr. Brady Labine, as well as our H-60 driver, pilot, Mr. Kip Godding. My name is Jason Quinn. I am United States Coast Guard Rescue Swimmer number 500. These are my rescues and rescues from those of us that put our lives on the line every day so others may live. This is the Real Rescue Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Real Rescue. I've got a unique experience with me today, which I'm super pumped to hear about because these guys, we actually heard from the Navy boys and they went out and did some work with the Creek Fire, and those guys got me in touch with these guys. This is the Army. Yes, the Army. I think you guys are actually my first Army guys now that I think about it. I'm going to have to look back, but you know what? We're going to say you guys are the first Army guys. Hoorah. All right. What's
right
up?
on. Blazing trails.
Yes. It's going to start right here from you guys. All right. So here's the deal. is these guys went out and did an amazing rescue with the Creek Fire. Now, the Creek Fire in California was devastating, and it demolished a lot. And in all the records and everything they talk about, it was like, what was it, 260 people or something like that you guys went out and saved collectively? Is that about accurate?
I think over the course of, there you go.
Go ahead, Joe.
Oh, Kip got it. Yeah, I think that was about right.
Okay. We're going to go with it. 260 people, give or take. That's pretty good. So let me introduce you guys right now. Flying the Chinook on that in particular day, or days, this is plural, is Joe Rosamond, and he was sitting right seat in the Chinook. Is that right, Joe? Did I pronounce that right?
That is correct. Yes, both pronunciation and position. Yep.
Yes. And then we had the co-pilot sitting in the left seat, Mr. Brady Levine. Nice. Stoked. And then on the other side, we have an H-60 driver, pilot in the right seat, Mr. Kip Godding. How are you, sir?
Good. How are you?
Did I get that one right too?
You're correct.
All right. I was batting like almost 75%. It was great. Well, guys, again, I thank you so much for coming on and joining me. I'll tell you what, I'm going to get right into this, and I'd like to read the DFC that you guys earned. And when I was reading it, everybody's name, you guys all got pretty much the same write-up from your position. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think they were all about the same. Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to read the one, and I'm just going to say, instead of a name, I'm going to say crew member. Okay. And that way, so everybody's on the same page, and you guys everybody out there that's listening can understand that this DFC was written for everybody. You guys all got it, all the crews. And then we're going to go a little further than that. Are you guys good with that?
Yep. Sounds good.
All right, let's dive right in. The award write-up. The Distinguished Flying Cross. The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress, July 2nd, 1926, has awarded the Distinguished Flying Cross to each of the crew members involved in the Creek Fire, 40th Combat Aviation Brigade, for distinguished acts of heroism while serving as a crew member in the support of California's Creek Fire. The crew risked their lives to rescue 30 families which were stranded at Mammoth Pools after being isolated in rapid growing Creek Fire. Each crew member and his team pursued a hazardous ingest even through the team that was advised that the conditions were too smoky to attempt an air rescue. The only suitable landing zone for his team was surrounded by fire within 50 feet. He and his team returned to the rescue site additional times under rapidly deteriorating conditions. Each crew member, personal courage, and astute analyst during the dire situation saved lives. Their actions are in keeping with the highest military traditions of selfless service, honor, and personal courage, and reflects great credit upon himself, the 40th Combat Aviation Brigade, the California Army National Guard, and the United States Army. Signed, President Donald J. Trump. You guys, holy cow. That is amazing. What an amazing write-up. 260 people, and you guys put yourselves at line, flying within 50 feet of smoke and fumes and fire. And like, I remember that fire, and it was gnarly. The other thing that I thought was interesting, and I'm going to keep talking for a minute, and then you guys are going to take over. But you guys also got an award in London, which I'm curious as to how that happened. So for everybody out there, but this was out of what was this out of? NationalGuard.mil, their news article. 2 California Army National Flight crews were awarded the prestigious Prince Philip Helicopter Rescue Award by the Honorable Company of Air Pilots in London. Like, what? You guys went around the world with this case. So, Joe, let me start with you for a minute, bud. Let's start right from the beginning. The fire starts, and I get it. It was all over California. What were you guys up to? What were you doing? Were you standing by and ready to go for this, or was this like an afterthought to call you guys?
Yeah, no, man. So that was Labor Day weekend, and like most families, we were the Guard doesn't necessarily keep a standby crew over the holiday weekends, and we're not tier one, we're not anything like that, right? So my wife and I, we were trying to figure out what the heck we were going to do for the holiday, get the kids out of their house and off their devices.
Love
And
it.
and then right around 4:30, 5 o'clock in the evening, that's when the mass text came out from, at least on the Stockton point of view, came out across the everybody's devices saying, "Hey, we've got this rescue coming on, and we need a crew who's available." So, me personally, I asked the wife, "Hey, we don't have anything going on, and there's this thing going on. Can I go?" Type of thing. And part of that too was that a lot of the other crews had just gotten back from a couple fires previously, so it was already. I kind of felt it was already kind of my turn to go type of thing. And she was good with it. I had to do some coordination with my son, I was gonna play some Zelda with later. But other than that, I got the thumbs up from the family, and then just texted back that I was available and started the process of packing and going into work and getting everything ready. And I imagine that was pretty much kind of the same thing for everybody else, all the other 6 folks on that day.
Right on. Well,
But
we're
yeah,
going to
just a
jump in and
normal.
ask, but I do love the fact that you had to ask your wife if you could go, because I would have to do the same thing. Honey, can I go? This looks like a lot of fun. Please, can I go? All right. Brady, what about you? Where were you at?
Yeah, pretty similar. I was just getting off the fire that Joe was talking about. So I'd spend a couple weeks doing some other aerial firefighting and got done that day before. So I happened to be in the Stockton area just visiting some friends. Same thing, when the text comes across, just respond with, hey, who's available? I'm available. So pretty quick, they said, okay, we got a crew. Everybody hurry up and get to Stockton as fast as you can. We all made it there pretty quick. And then there was a lot of preparation to do. Like, I wish it was as easy as, all right, we're here, let's hop in the helicopter and go do what we got to do. But there's a lot of prep work, paperwork, risk assessments, prepping the aircraft. So we kind of had to divide and conquer, do everything we could to get that aircraft off the ground as quickly as we could with the limited information we had.
We're going to come back to that for sure, because prepping the aircraft is definitely a different aspect than what I'm used to, because our aircraft is usually ready to go. Coast Guard wise, since when I got out of the Coast Guard, we had to do that too. Whereas, oh, what are we going to? And you have to reconfigure an entire aircraft. So I'm going to come back to that. All right, Kip, my friend, where are you at with all this? Same thing, big text come through and let's rock and roll, or?
Yeah. So at that time, Colonel Hall, notifying the 2 facilities, he's now a General Hall, notifying Stockton and Fresno, hey, we need some response from the air crews as far as how many aircraft we can put up and how quick you can be here. So we did the exact same thing. We're at home, whatnot, barbecuing, hanging out, and trying to find out who's available, who can get to the airfield and support the mission. So we all mustered back here to the airfield, did just like those guys, getting the aircraft out, getting the bucket out, making sure we're not forgetting anything, and getting ready, positioned to respond to this need.
Awesome. I love it. Now, were you going into plan on fighting fires or planning on going into rescue?
So at the initial call, there's a lot of people involved. There's a lot of, just like you were when a kid, one message gets transmitted to one person and to another person, to another person. So I was a little unsure. And right up until the time that we left, this is the Blackhawk, right until we left Fresno, I wanted to take the bucket with me. At that time, I knew we were still going to be primarily concentrating on people, but I still wanted to take the bucket. Nobody had mentioned buckets, but you never know when you need it. And to get it out there, I can drop it anywhere I want to drop it off, and it can just hang out there if I need it. Great. If I don't. But then the word came, you guys are definitely not going to be doing any water bucket work. You're definitely just going to be taking people that are in a dangerous situation and bringing them somewhere safe.
Love it. Love it. Brady, let me jump back to you real quick, because you had mentioned you were actually firefighting that the day before.
Yeah.
Were you firefighting the Creek Fire?
No, another one. It was further up north, and they all kind of run together. It was either the Lightning Complex or the BTU or the Glen. Like every year for fire season, we're usually out there for 2 weeks to 2 months, with crews rotating through every 7 to 10 days. And we're out there just putting water on fire. So yeah, a bunch of our crews had just gotten done firefighting one of those fires at that time.
Awesome. Love it. Love it. Man, you guys are busy then. All right. So now you guys get this call out. And we talked about it a little bit offline, but the Chinook and the H-60, you guys are at two different units, right? So you're responding from two different locations. Chinook, where are you guys responding from?
So yeah, we're out of Stockton.
Okay. And then Kip, you're coming out of Fresno, you said?
We're Fresno. Yeah.
Got it. Now, did you guys know you were going together to do this joint mission together, or is it kind of like find out when you get up there?
So I was aware. I knew that the Chinook had been told to respond over to the Fresno area and get us on our internal frequency, and that we would link up either en route, depending on just the timing, or we would link up, at the perimeter or at the pickup site. I'm not sure how much Joe knew when he took off, if the 60 was involved. He definitely, we talked to each other while I was still on the ground. He was flying en route to the fire, and I was still on the ground here, not turning blades yet. And we talked on our internal frequency to figure out what we were going to do.
Nice. Now, if I had been you, Joe, I would have been like, hurry up. I'm going to get them all. You're going to be late. Sorry, Kip.
Yeah, luckily it was luckily it was, we knew it was about an hour and 10-minute flight to get down to that area from Stockton. And in that time where Kip came up on the radio, that was the first time I was then notified that there was going to be another ship on this, which was great to have him around.
That's awesome. All right. Next question is going to be, what did you guys know you were flying into? And they gave you like this idea, hey, you're going to go into you're flying into the fire, which is like everything against of what everything we've been taught as aviators to do, which just throwing that out there for everybody, like, hey, yeah, let's fly into the fire. No, it's not. Fly on the edge, and you dump the water on the edge. Thank you, Tony Weber. I'll throw him a bone out there. But what did you guys know? What did you hear? Did you hear the 30 families that were trapped, or?
So originally, when the first text came out, it came out as 30 people, right? So we're responding like, okay, 30 people. And that kind of led into thinking that we were getting called because it's 30 people, and the Chinook usually carries about 30 people, right? As we're doing pre-flight, as we're getting everything ready to go, that transformed into 30 families. So now we're doing mental math, like, okay, 30 times 4, that's quite a bit more people. This is going to be a long night, fellows. And the conditions, we knew we were flying towards a fire, but we didn't exactly know where the fire's edge was in comparison to Mammoth Pools at that moment in time. We didn't have any of the fire traffic area data, right? So there was a lot of unknowns. We didn't know exactly where the LZ was going to be, and we had only gotten this, like Kip was saying, we only got this like text that said, yeah, somewhere near Mammoth Pools, and that was through like 4 different people, worth of telephone game, and so you can only trust that as far as you can throw it, right? And and so we spent that hour and 10 minutes going down to Fresno, like texting when we shouldn't be texting in the aircraft, right? And going back and forth.
Absolutely not. No, sir, that did not happen.
Yeah, trying to call Cal Fire and get even that fire traffic area, all of their frequencies and the data for that through the Sacramento ECC. So we spent almost that entire hour just data gathering, and it got extremely frustrating because at one point we had, no less than 7 wrong coordinates that we had been given. We were trying to convert. Brady's over there doing circles for me, and kind of watching me go through the roof a little bit on these stupid coordinates I was converting, 3 or 4 times and trying to place on the map, and he kept it calm and whatnot. But and so it finally got to a point where it was calling the Krieg Fire Operations guy, whoever that was, and saying, okay, just where are the damn people? Where are they? And he said, oh, Mammoth Pools. Okay, cool. We can do that. I know where that's at on the map, and that's really how that all came to fruition.
Wow. All right, I got to back up just a minute. Brady, you had mentioned earlier, like you had to reconfigure the aircraft and get it ready to go. Prior to when you got into the aircraft, what was it set up for?
It was just not ready, essentially. You know, we're not medevac. We don't have the aircraft pre-flighted and ready to go. Normally, when we come in for a mission, we have plenty of time to do our pre-flight, make sure that it's configured for whatever we're doing. Whether that's water buckets, like Kip was saying, like we initially thought we were bringing our water bucket as well. So we put it on a cart, rolled it in the aircraft thinking we were going to need that. And again, as we gather a little more information before we hit the road, we realized we don't need this water bucket. We're actually going to need the internal space. So let's take it out. And then there's other considerations too. Are we going to be needing to use our hoist, which requires a whole nother reconfiguration? We actually have to remove some components so we can run a cable through the belly of the aircraft. So all this stuff, while Joe's going through the risk assessment, looking at weather, getting the frequencies and the coordinates, which ended up not being super helpful. And we're just trying to get the aircraft fueled up, pre-flit, and ready to launch. And I mean, it was great that we had 2 experienced flight engineers to come with us too. So the Chinook, our minimum complement to fly is 2 pilots in the front and a flight engineer in the back. We often fly with a flight engineer and a crew chief. In this case, the 2 guys who happened to be able to respond for the non-rated crew members in the back were 2 experienced flight engineers. So they were able to make the whole process go a lot quicker and smoother than it otherwise may have.
Love it. Love it. Kip, I got to run to you for a second here now. You guys are getting ready to go out. You know, you'd mentioned getting the bucket and then not needing the bucket. What was your configuration set up in your aircraft? And how many guys did you guys end up taking?
So there was three crew members. We have 2 pilots, and then we go with 1 crew chief. The crew chief that was with us this particular day was already a warrant officer 1 because he's waiting to go to flight school, and he's now returned. He returned last week, and so now he's a pilot as well.
Oh, shout out. Congratulations to him. That's amazing. Good for him. Awesome.
Yeah. So we had 2 pilots in the front and then a WO1 as the crew chief. And the same thing, you know, kind of contemplating because the information was not as timely or as correct as we wanted it to be. Just trying to figure out, are we taking this bucket or not? And, you know, the coordinates and the frequencies and how we're going to link up. So just working through all that stuff, same exact scenario. Trying to get weather, trying to get as much information as we can before we leave the ground. And we only have the radios at that point. So just working through it as fast as we can.
All right. Okay. Now you guys get a chance to link up. You've video called each other. They kindly come back and give you a proper location of Mammoth Lakes. Take us in. Like, what did you see going in? And yeah, take us through it.
So when we initially launched, like Joe and Brady were saying, they weren't aware that there was going to be another 60 joining them. So they pushed over to the fire, to the grid coordinates that we had, trying to figure out where exactly it was, elevation, all those types of things. Just about that time I launched, we started communicating on the internal frequency and telling them that, hey, I'm about 15 minutes behind you. I'm going to catch up with you. And then when we got out to the actual fire area, there was a air attack already on station and he was working tankers. So he didn't know we were coming. And we really didn't know that he was out there either, but we could hear him that he was out there directing tankers, dropping fire retardant along wherever perimeters he was trying to manage. And when we were getting close to him, Joe and Brady were asking, hey, we're trying to get to Mammoth Pools and trying to coordinate us passing their lines, getting past where they were actively fighting the fire so we could get to the area that we wanted to. And it just took a little bit of coordination because they weren't expecting us. And normally when the tankers are dropping, they usually take the rotary wing guys and they give them an area to stay at, and then they wait till all the tanker drops are clear and done, and then we transition. And like you were saying in the beginning, normally as firefighting, what we do is we stay outside of the fire, and we're usually on the green part of the fire that hasn't burned, dropping our water right where the black part of the fire is and it's burning. So this time we were going to completely pass the black and go deep, deep, deep into the area that was burnt, which, you know, we were trying to get as much information, as much coordination from that air attack who was already there. So he was trying to hold us, trying to figure out exactly what was going on, how he could sequence us through, because he didn't order us. He didn't request us to be out there. Another entity requested us to be out there. So it just took a little while to communicate and find out what everybody's intentions were and what everybody was trying to do. And I can hand it back to Joe.
All right, Joe.
All right. Just like Kip was saying, you know, there's a lot of other moving parts going on that luckily with our relationship with CAL FIRE, we already knew about. Like we knew that, hey, typically there's all these other things happening. And so we were able to make coordination. And like I said, it was getting late in the day already. So as we were circling, I remember we were circling over this apple orchard. Kip was just taking off out of Fresno, and we were, messing around with these coordinates, trying to figure out where we were going. And it just so happens that the sun was setting. All of the CAL FIRE operations in the air were ceasing for the day because they got the cutoff, and that kind of opened up the airspace for us. And the air attack then kind of gave us the airspace. As we were doing that, making those circles in that orchard, we happened to see where the fire line, where it crossed the San Joaquin River, there was a little bit of a break in the smoke, right? And so really at that point, once we got confirmation, yeah, Mammoth Pools. Oh, and by the way, there's nobody else out here that we can run into in the airspace. We came up with this plan to, hey, well, we don't really know. Like you said, we typically just fly on the fire's edge and drop water on fire, right? So, and going into the black is not something we normally do. So we didn't really know what to expect. Our best plan was, we had goggled up at this point. It was starting to get dark enough where goggles were the best. So, okay, well, let's try to go through that break in the smoke and break through the active fire and see what happens on the other side, basically. And maybe a little bit of ignorance, maybe being a little bit naive to it, I completely expected that once we got through the wall of smoke that it was going to be better on the other side. And within seconds, realized that was exactly the wrong thing to assume, because it got much darker. The visibilities got much worse. I mean, we were immediately down to about a half-mile visibility. And I remember those first, 30 seconds or so was like, okay, how the heck are we going to do this, right? I can't see a thing. We've got blackened terrain that's been burned on a black, moonless backdrop. And almost as quickly as that panic kind of, that fear kind of like, or that realization of like, oh man, what did we get ourselves into? Almost as immediately as that hit, then we start seeing all the little spot fires, the leftover vegetation that was on fire, that was kind of outlining that terrain. And you could see that it was, as you moved the aircraft, it was kind of moving and giving you some of those overlapping contours and some of that, motion parallax type stuff. And like, oh, wait a second, I can't see that far in front of me, but we could, this is doable. Like we could do this, right? And so like, I swear every minute, maybe 2 minutes, we were, between Brady and I, we were kind of talking about what we constantly, this is what I can see. What can you see? I think I think this plan is still viable. Is everybody comfortable still? And every time we asked that for the next, however long it was, I don't even remember, maybe 20 minutes or so on ingress, like every minute or two, we were asking for everybody to kind of chime in with how they felt. And every single time, the crew members, the flight engineers in the back, Cameron and George, they said, yep, we're good to go. Let's keep going. We got to do our best.
What about you, Brady? How are you feeling? Because you're looking at it firsthand. I know us guys in the back, we don't quite see it in the back the way you guys see it up front. We're looking on the sides. That's what we see.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that was why I think, like Joe was saying, it was so important for us to continue that communication with them. And I do remember a couple times saying, hey, are you guys still comfortable if we keep trucking on? And they'd say, yeah, we're good. But you could also tell maybe there was some hesitation. So I thought it was important to explain to them like why we were still comfortable moving on, right? So the whole time that we're on that ingress that Joe was talking about, we're flying nice and slow, right? Plenty of time to react to anything that comes up in front of us. We're also cross-monitoring off of our maps. So we got moving maps in the aircraft, and we also have iPads. So we can look at, all right, this is the valley we're flying down right now. This is the height of the terrain out both left and right doors. We can see those embers burning along the ridge lines. So we can fly nice and slow to that next ridge line. Part of the consideration was we want to fly as high as we can so that we don't get tied up with any terrain, snags, power lines, things like that. But we also need to fly low enough that we stay below the thick layer of dark smoke above us. Because as soon as we get above that ridge line, now there is no more flames that our goggles can amplify, so we can have that contour to be able to see the ridge line. So we want to fly low under the smoke, but high enough to stay above any power lines and snags. So our plan was essentially just go ridge line to ridge line. As long as we can see something in front of us and out both sides, left and right, we know we're safe. And then we also had a backup plan, which Joe and Kip can fill you in. They developed an inadvertent plan on the way in.
I love it. Kip, let me come back to you. You said you were 15 minutes behind. You're going to catch the Chinook.
Yeah. So while we were waiting, we're getting goggled up, and then I could see their position lights and their strobe lights. And so we got a little communication at the same time that the air attack said, hey, I'm not aided. I'm only with my eyeballs. I don't have goggles. So they gave us the airspace, and we started heading in, and I slowly just caught up little by little until I was just about, quarter mile behind him, and then slowly caught up that we were basically a formation, 10, 15 discs from each other. And then just depending on the visibility of the smoke, get a little closer, get a little further, whatever the smoke would allow me to stay close enough to see them, but still give each other room to maneuver and room to slow down and not endanger the other guys. But, just plugging along like the guys are saying. We could see the little bits and embers of things burning, and that gave you a lot of distance help as far as height and distance from the aircraft. And that was super beneficial in picking the right route and just slowly plugging along until we could get closer to the LZ.
So, and with all of this going on, you and Joe come up with a little backup plan. What Brady just said. So what's this backup plan? I love a backup plan. I love options, man.
Joe?
Well, at this point,
I love how you just threw Joe under the bus. Joe.
So, all right. So at this point, we're in the valley. Kip's behind us. I remember, for lack of a better term, we're kind of steady state now, right? We've got this series of recurring events. Okay, is everybody good? This is what I see. This is what you see. Okay. Now I'm finally able to think about, well, what happens if we go inadvertent? What happens if this visibility drops to 0 and we can't see anything? So I remember aiming the searchlights, so that one, it wasn't blinding us, but then Kip could see us a little bit better with the searchlight aiming down, that sort of stuff. And really my plan was, if we went inadvertent, I was just going to climb, turn around and go back to the west. Well, now that we're a formation, kind of an ad hoc formation, I wanted to make sure to at least get that briefing item done with Kip. So call him on the internal frequency and just let him know, hey, Kip, just in case I go inadvertent, this is my plan. I'm going to, climb up and turn around. Just so happens that about that same time, I think Kip lost sight of us in the smoke. And so, Kip, if you want to elaborate from your perspective.
Yeah, it was obviously the pucker factor was pretty good. We were working very hard. We were right at the limits of our, ability, and losing a little bit of sight of the lead aircraft, and then hear him come over internal talking about inadvertent. I thought that he was inadvertent. I was right on the edge of going inadvertent. So I immediately turned around right then without any hesitation and headed back out the same way we came in. Then once he told me this is my inadvertent plan and started talking a little bit, obviously we were making a distance between each other, but we were also going opposite directions. So he was continuing in and I was continuing out. And that's how we briefed our inadvertent and how we executed our inadvertent.
All by accident and on purpose.
Yeah.
Wow. Dang. All right. So at what point did you guys, let me back up. You guys are flying out right now. Kip, you're now turned around. Did you get out to beyond the fire and then come back, or?
Yeah. So the area that the fire was in is a little bit more familiar to me than the other crews, because it was right up the road from Fresno. So most of the mountains, canyons, I was super familiar. And I say I mean me and my crew. The co-pilot, Irvin Hernandez, and then the crew chief, who's now a pilot, Ji Zhang. So me, we, us, it's all of us. So I knew the area. We all knew the area. So we exited out. I knew that there were other ways that I could get in there, but I definitely did not want to go down the same canyon as another aircraft who I didn't know the distance ahead of me now once I lost sight of them. So we went around and just did a counterclockwise orbit around the edge of the fire, all the way around. I would say, 5-6 miles at least, and then entered through the east to get to the Mammoth Pools area through a different canyon. But after we split up, those guys continued through the river valley going to Mammoth Pools. We went around counterclockwise and communicated with each other. Hey, where are you at? Okay, I'm 8 miles to the west of Mammoth Pools. Okay, I'm 5 miles to the east of Mammoth Pools. So we know we're not in any kind of danger of hitting each other, and then slowly talked each other in. Those guys saying, okay, I have sight of the reservoir now. And then me just a couple minutes behind them. Okay, I have sight of the reservoir as well. Okay, I can see your strobe light. I see you, I have you. We're no danger of colliding with each other anymore. We're going to be able to deconflict.
Wow. All right. So Brady, let's come to you real quick. You guys come out through the smoke. You decide to continue to keep on, even after, like, with the inadvertent IMC, this is what we're going to do. And you guys just keep trucking along. When you got over into Mammoth Falls, I mean, I get it where you're like socked in. I've never flown in the smoke that you guys have flown in. So I can't speak from my own experience, but how the heck did you guys find a place to land?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I'm looking at a map right now, and it looks like we came in on what looks like the San Joaquin River. It turns into Camp Creek, and that leads right to the dam on the south side of Mammoth Pool Reservoir. So the first thing we see is the smoke clears up a little bit because obviously the whole reservoir itself isn't smoky. It's just pitch black, but that stands out against everything else that's a little bit burning and smoky and small flames and embers. So we see this big black opening. We know that's the reservoir. And then we see a large dam. Immediately, we're just like looking around like, okay, how are we going to find these people? This is a huge body of water. Are we just going to scan the perimeter? And we start looking, where can we potentially land? Well, the dam is one of those few places that isn't on fire. There's no vegetation or anything on it. So that becomes an option right away. And as we're coming over the dam, we just start scanning across the reservoir. And we see at about our 10 o'clock flashing lights far off in the distance. Like, well, that's the only sign of life out here. Let's go check that out. So we come down over the reservoir, start heading towards those lights, and we realize that they're people's SUVs, automobiles, campers. Have driven them all the way down the boat launch down to the dried up beach area. And they had their flashers on, presumably because they could hear us, and that was their best chance to try to signal us. So we see that. We're like, okay, we need to try to find a spot to land. Unfortunately, like most of the reservoirs in California the last couple of years, the water line is way lower than it normally is, which you'd think would be useful and that it maybe be somewhere to land, but it's too steep, too rocky, too sandy, not really somewhere you can land a helicopter. So we come into that area. We spot the boat launch itself. So again, something that doesn't have any trees or rocks on it, no fire, no smoke. There is sand to both sides of it. So we do prepare to come in and do a dust landing, but we know that at least it's a solid piece of ground that people are driving up and down with their boats. So it should be able to support us. So we picked the boat launch. We were able to do an approach and safely land at the boat launch.
Wow. Joe, how'd that look for you?
Yeah. So yeah, I remember just doing the flight. I remember Brady going, "Hey, I see the dam," and then a few seconds later, I see it go through the chin bubble, underneath the chin bubble. I'm like, okay, cool. Now we've got a reference point. We're over the water now, and like he was saying, we just start scanning for okay. And then he calls out, "Yep, I see some flashing lights over at our 10, 11 o'clock." We start heading that direction, and sure enough, that's where all the people are. And we immediately start going into LZ selection mode, right? And like you said, we had picked out an initial spot, started doing the approach. We're like, oh wait, no, that's a cliff from the drought. That's not going to work out. So we start sliding around to the other side of the people, trying to stay somewhat away from them, so our rotor wash doesn't cause any other injury or damage or anything like that. We find the boat launch. And almost unanimously at the same time, everybody goes, yep, that's going to have to be the spot. There's a little bit of a wider area on the boat ramp about halfway up that gave us a little bit more maneuver room. So we just set up for a degraded visual environment approach. We have some modes on the aircraft that help us out to keep us from doing dumb things in the sand. And turned those on, briefed it real quick, and did the approach. As soon as we got into ground effect, lost visuals, the flight engineers called us in and kind of they did like the fine tuning, you know, left one, you know, forward one, whatever, turned the tail this way, and so then we did the landing. On the first landing, we actually started rolling backwards down the ramp because the brakes didn't hold. So we picked it right back up to a hover again, got stabilized, reset the brakes, did it again, and everything worked out just fine after that.
Oh, gee. All right. Oh, good.
Yeah, then we looked down, it ended up being, yeah, and then we looked down and oh man, that's about a 13-degree slope, which is, you know, there are no slope limits in a Chinook, but I'll tell you that's one of them. That gets that was pretty close. Yeah. So and then we started being able to look around. We saw where the fire was, saw where the people was, and then just tried to communicate whatever information that we could back to Kip, like, hey man, this is a 13-degree slope. If you're going straight into it, you know, that way he can come up with his own plan once we got out of there.
Gotcha. All right. So now once you guys get on deck, back ramp, lower down, or are you guys going out the side door?
Yeah, flight engineers lowered the ramp, and so one works the ramp, one works the cabin door. I'm pretty sure that both of those went down. The primary means of getting everybody on was through the ramp, but the flight engineer who was up front, I'm sure he exited his cabin door, and then started. They both just started assessing the situation, tried to triage and assess who the priority was to come in. They prioritized and luckily they also had some help on the ground. There was a lady on the ground. All we know her by is the red-haired lady, and she was instrumental also in helping make sure that our priority of getting the injured out first happened, right? So we wanted to make sure that anybody who needed medical attention got on board first on that first trip, and then they just loaded the aircraft. Brady and I kind of sat up front and got to relax for a little bit while they loaded the aircraft with I think it was 65 people that first time.
65 people?
Yeah, I think that was right. 62, 65, something like that. And in the meanwhile, Brady and I are just sitting up front trying to come up with a performance plan. You know, we're doing a hasty performance planning. Luckily, we have a system on board the aircraft that'll do that for us. But the key factor there is, all right, how many people did you load up? Because I got to put a weight in the system here, and it'll spit out some numbers, you know, and that was the big question mark the whole time. But they counted heads. They said 65 or whatever it was. We usually use, I think we decided to use 200 pounds per person in the system, just because we figured some of the people were kids. We saw the kids getting loaded. We know that in the United States, some people are well above 200 pounds. We figured it would average itself out. And so that came out to a number, and it said, oh yeah, we got plenty of power. So that first trip was no big deal. In the meantime, Blackhawk shows up, Kip shows up, and I just remember, well, we're kind of, you know, really not panicking, but everything was really high tension at that point. We're trying to, you know, get things squared away. I remember Kip's calm voice come over the radio and say, hey, Joe, we're hovering right here behind you. Everything's fine. We got plenty of power. Take your time. When you're ready, just come out to the left, and we'll be clear of you, and you'll have plenty of room to do whatever you need to do. And that really, at least for me, it really helped calm it really helped calm me, and like, okay, everything's good. This is working out. You know, we can focus on something else. You
know? That's awesome. It's amazing when another voice from somewhere else, when they come in and you're like, oh yeah, no, it's cool. It's good. We got this.
Yeah.
All right. So while you guys are loading up, Kip, let me jump to you for a sec. You're literally in a hover holding behind them, just waiting to land, or?
Yeah, a little bit. We'd come in. We kind of linked up over the radio. I could get their strobe. We watched them come into land. Made sure everything was safe. We got an idea of where they were landing. They told us the slope, so we kind of mentally packaged that for later. And then we had gotten a call earlier before we left that there was possibly 2 locations where the people had congregated. So while they were loading their packs, we made a perimeter around the lake, just seeing if there was anybody else. There was a number of cars gathered in various areas, and we just hovered really close to those, just gave anybody that was in the woods or underneath their car or in the passenger seat plenty of time to come out to show themselves, and nobody did. So we went on to the next group of cars. So we just kind of did the perimeter of the lake, just making sure there was nobody else stuck somewhere else. And once we found out that there was nobody else stuck anywhere else, yeah, we went and did a hover on the other side of the lake with giving those guys plenty of room, and then just telling them, hey, any helicopter pilot, you got your tail, you can't see. You got a crew member that can tell you what's going on, but you can't see it yourself. So I just want him to know that he could do whatever maneuver he wanted to do to get out of there safely, pending power, and that we were far enough away from him that the lake was his to maneuver as he sees fit to get his load out.
Man, what a warm and fuzzy that is. My gosh. You know what? Even as a crew member, I can tell you that's a warm and fuzzy for me too. I'm like, we got this. That's awesome. All right. So Brady, let me come to you real quick, because now you guys you're loading up, you're doing all your calculations. What's the brief to get ready to take off, and where are you going?
Yeah. Well, like we said, we ran the numbers. We knew we'd have the power to get out of there. Our plan was just to get up off that boat launch as smoothly and safely as we could, and then try to find our way out. So we had kind of briefed something else we'd spoken with Kip on over the radio, that when he got to the reservoir, he said, hey, guys, I found another route. Maybe you guys should go check out the east side. That's the way we came in, and the visibility was better. So our brief was, let's not go in the way that we just came. Let's not go out the way we just came in, because it was pretty smoky. And it sounds like Kip found a better ingress egress route. So let's do that. So the plan was just to get over the water, get some speed so the aircraft was more efficient, and then find that valley that he took on the way in.
Wow. All right. So you guys take off. Kip, I imagine you're watching them pull up, rotate out, or maneuver any which way that Joe wanted to go there. And then did you just follow in right after them and land right in the same spot?
Yeah, we watched them get out and get clear, and then we headed in. They load off the aft end, so they were positioned like the long running length of the boat run, and we were concerned that people not there, like I said, there was nobody. I don't know this red-haired woman that was on the ground, but there was nobody in charge. There was no civilian authority in any way, shape, or form, whether it be a park ranger or somebody who was a reserve sheriff from Madera County. There was nobody there except civilians. So we were really concerned that people would not understand that this is a different aircraft. We're a Black Hawk, a 60, and the tail rotor is at the aft end, and we didn't want them approaching. So we landed perpendicular. The area where there's a little bulbous, I guess it's probably a place for people to turn around, or I'm not sure exactly why it is, but there was one point in the boat ramp where it was a little wider than the rest. So we stuck our chin bubble on that, and we landed perpendicular to the boat ramp. So the only way they could approach the aircraft was from the right-hand cargo door, which is where we wanted them to approach.
Beautiful.
So we landed there. Crew chief jumped out. People were really calm. Obviously, they wanted to get out of there, but nobody was crazy rushing. There was definitely some still injured people, so we got those people on board. Did our calculations as well, made sure we were within our margins, and then. How
many people did you guys load up on?
So the first time, I think we had 13 available seats, and I think we took 13 or 14 people the first time. I'm not sure. Everybody was in a seat. So we have seats that stroke, that will absorb G forces if there's an accident. So I mean, normally you don't put people on the floor unless obviously an emergency. It was an emergency, but at that time we thought there's plenty of time for us to make a couple more turns. So we just loaded up all the seats we had. Some people had children on their laps and pets on their laps and whatnot, but we basically put somebody in every seat and then departed.
Oh my gosh. 13 people in the back of a 60. That's a lot. That's a lot. Like everybody's in a seat though. This is great. This is great. I'm loving it. All right. So now you guys bail out. Joey, let me come back to you real quick. You find your way out. Did you follow Kip's egress the same way he came in?
I think on that first one, I'm not sure what exactly. I think we ended up going right back out the San Joaquin River, in that was a known quantity to us. And we, yeah, I forget at this point exactly which way. I just remember we took off, we're flying back, and now we're asking the flight engineers, hey, you got any injured back there? And they're like, yeah, we got like a dozen people that have some burns and it's pretty bad shape, and whatnot. So then I just remember my focus turning to, okay, well, let's get some EMS rolling. So the point of contact that we had with CAL FIRE, we let them know, hey, we're out of Mammoth Pools with this many people, the Blackhawks on the ground. And that was another thing. We kind of slowed our egress so that until we saw that Kip was down and safe on the ground, and then we left. And then we let the CAL FIRE guys know, hey, we've got X amount of people, about a dozen of them are injured. We need EMS to meet us at the Fresno flight activity. And they acknowledged that. We continued the egress, and once we got radio contact, I think, Brady, I think we called Oakland Center as well at that point or something. And then
Oakland Center, and then they handed us off to Fresno Approach, and they handed us off to Tower. So we were going to tell everybody, hey, this is an emergency. We need to get all the ambulances we can down to the guard ramp.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when you have 65 people coming down, they're bringing some ambulances out for sure.
And we were also able to get radio contact with our operations at Fresno. So we said, hey, just so you know, there's going to be a bunch of ambulances showing up. Why don't you go open that gate so we can get everybody right on the ramp right away? So it took a little bit of coordination, but we talked to all the people we had to try to make that go as smoothly as it could when we got back.
That's awesome.
And it went wonderfully. By the time we showed up 20 minutes later, everybody was ready to receive all those people. And I know the Air Force responded as well. They had some people from the 144th come across the airport, and they were helping triage people and get them set up. And the people that were hurt the most or needed attention the most, I know they got it. Some people were ambulanced to the hospital and whatnot, and that worked out pretty smooth. And by the time we finished offloading, that's when Kip made it back to the airport, and then we were finally able to do a face-to-face brief together.
Wow, man, that is awesome. All right, Kip, how was your takeoff and your egress?
Yeah, we, just followed what they did. We did our calculations, knew where our margins were, anticipated how much power we were going to need to get out of there. We were not as full as they were, so it wasn't as a significant event as it was for those guys. And we departed and went to the east and then back towards Fresno, just like those guys in front of us, saying, hey, we've got 3 people on board. They're definitely going to need an ambulance. The other ones, certainly not calm, but not as injured as the couple that needed medical care. And we got back to Fresno. Sergeant Bell was the person who was in charge here in Fresno, and she was the one that was coordinating, getting the gates open, getting a triage, getting the fire department on premise, getting the ambulance workers on premise. And then it was a quick handoff as soon as we landed, as well as when the Chinook landed. The guys were right there, the firefighters and the paramedics were right there to receive those people and take them straight to an ambulance. And they were definitely on the road within a minute. They were headed towards the hospital. So it was great.
Wow, man, the coordination on ground side just to facilitate for all the victims and patients and people coming out of there. That's incredible. That's a lot of work right there. Good.
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
It was nice to see when we came over the hill and came down towards Fresno that the ramp was lit up with, sirens and emergency response vehicles ready for us to land.
Holy cow. You know what? As an operator, like with you guys in the air, that is amazing and awesome to hear, because I have been in the back of that helicopter where you land and they're like, we didn't even know you were coming. We're like, we called like 10 people. How did you not know? Yeah, it was never told. So now you're on the ramp or you're turning for like 20 minutes waiting for an ambulance to show up. So the fact that that was there, props to everybody that was on the ground support to set you guys up for ultimate success. That is awesome.
Yeah.
So, all right, next question. So now you guys have unloaded all these. I imagine you have to get fuel. So you fill up, top off, or get to your whatever weight you need to be at, and then head right back out, same way you came in?
Yeah, we got gas, and our colonel, who's now General Hall, met us and came over and talked to the crews, wanted to know the conditions, wanted to know what level of risk and our comfort level. So he came to the two different crews and you know, asked how we felt, whether we thought we were able to make another turn. And once we got topped off, had a little brief as far as who's going to lead, which direction we're going to go, where they're going to approach it from the east again, and then head off.
Good. You guys formation flying out of there now? Now you guys are together. You know what's up, and you've already done it once. So formation flying all the way out, right on the scene, and then.
Yeah. So to me, formation flying, I mean, we're a little different than the Chinooks. For us in the Blackhawk world, if you're closer than 10 discs, that's called a formation. Okay. You know, the Chinooks are a little bit bigger, obviously a lot more rotor wash, so they're usually spaced off a little further. So whether I was leading or following, I wouldn't call us a formation. We were definitely working in coordination with each other and flying the same direction, but I not necessarily in formation where you would have to be cognizant of the other guy's rotor wash or the other guy's tip path plane, so you weren't going to mesh. We weren't that close. We were just you know, keeping each other abreast of our intentions and headed to the same direction both ways.
Love it. Love it. All right. So now you get back in again. Any trouble going back into this landing, Joe?
No, actually, Kip we followed Kip on the second one, and he took us through that eastern route, the eastern egress that he did, and it was a much better as far as visibility was concerned. And he landed first, and we just kind of loitered over the lake. Because he was going to be in and out a whole lot quicker than we were, just based on how many people needed to load on. And that's when we kind of realized that there's more people here than when we left. So we think that there was like a lot of people either in the water or kind of hiding in their trailers or doing whatever, you know, but they were kind of coming out of the woodworks. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I see more heads this time than I did last time. So we probably need to start getting, I don't know how much time we have left, but we need to start maximizing how many people we get on board each time. Kip did their crew unloaded their aircraft and took off, and then we landed much the same as we did before, and then our loading process took significantly longer. I want to say we were on the ground a good half hour, maybe 40 minutes. While the flight engineers went to work. And once again, Brady and I kind of up front, getting to relax and going, okay, let us know when you're done. How many people, you know? And they said, man, we lost count. We don't know. And well, we need a number. We need a number that I can put in the system so I know if we have the power to take off. And they estimated around 70, 75. So we used that number, and the system said that we've got just enough power. So like, okay, cool, let's do it. We took off and immediately knew that 75 was not the correct number. That was much higher than that. Just that, I mean, the aircraft.
Come on, crew chief.
It's all good. It's all good. It was stressful, and after looking at the pictures and seeing what was back there, I totally understand how they lost count and why there was an estimate, and how that estimate could have been low, like it was. Like nobody would have ever expected there to be as many people as there was on board. But the aircraft was just shaking so much. Blades were flapping and all this stuff, and we tried to take off, try to get to our best rated climb airspeed, and we couldn't. We have another system on board called a cruise guide indicator. That thing was, I remember Brady was flying at this point, and I was really focused on, hey man, we got to get to 80 knots. We got to get to 80 knots. And I kept seeing the airspeed come down to like 55, and I'm like, dude, we got to get to 80 knots. We're not going to get out of here. We're only climbing at like 200 feet per minute. We're at max power. I think we over torqued by 3%. We had the rotor speed up to 103%. And all these timers are going off. We had a 10-minute timer, a 2-minute timer, all this kind of stuff counting down. And we're barely climbing out. And Brady goes, dude, look at the CGI. I can't go 80 knots. And I'm like, oh, and it's pegged in the red. I'm like, oh my God, you're right. So now we're playing this game where we're climbing out at 55 knots, 60 knots. We try to speed it up to get into the more efficient airspeed, start shaking to death. So we slow back down and kind of use that to zoom climb a little bit, cycle climb a little bit, get a little bit more climb out of it. And we just constantly kind of back and forth trying to stay at our best rate of climb, but also not overstress the aircraft more than we already have. And it took an extra 10 minutes or so just to get the climb done, to get above the terrain and get to a point where we could cross the ridge lines to get out of the smoke. So that one was pretty hairy. We egressed, got to Fresno Airport. I remember we wanted to do a roll-on just because we didn't know how much power it was going to take. If we had hover capability, any of that kind of stuff, so we're going to do a roll-on. And that's when the flight crew said, well, that's going to be a problem too. We have people loaded on the ramp, so we can't raise the ramp, so we can't do a roll-on. So we opted for the next best, which was we opted for the in-ground effect deceleration, which worked out, and then we landed, four-wheel taxied in. When we offloaded, we counted, and I think some people on the ground counted as well, and ended up with 102 people on board for that lift. And when they said a number, like, oh yeah, okay, yep, that makes sense. Now with everything else going on, that totally makes sense.
Holy shit. 102 people. All right, so Brady, I got to come to you because you were on the controls coming out of there. Like, the majority of people out in the world can understand white knuckle driving. That is probably the best comparison that we can say, like, to white knuckle flying, because that's exactly what that sounded like.
Yeah, I'd say that's a fair comparison. So, like Joe said, we ran the numbers. We said if we got 75 or 80 people, this is how much power it's going to take to lift up. This is how much we need, and we'll be good. So again, as soon as we lifted up, not only did we realize that we had significantly more weight on the aircraft than we expected, we also had our center of gravity was out of balance as well. So because we had so many people in the aft of the aircraft and all the way out to the ramp, we had an aft CG. So right as the aircraft breaks the ground, it starts to list aft. So we're starting to kind of fall back. And I'm at a point now where I've over torqued the aircraft, and I can see the temperature of the engines is a lot higher than we expected it to be. And normally if that happens, you think you try to pick the aircraft up and you don't really have the power margins you thought you would, you could just put it back down. In this case, the aircraft is kind of falling down and back, and we're on an upslope. So there is no just putting it back down on the ground. So we just had to accept that we were going to be heavy at a high altitude in a very hot environment and do what we could. So like Joe said, we just kind of had to swing it around and try to get airspeed as quickly as we could. So we're using all the power we have, gaining airspeed, shooting for that best rate of climb airspeed, that 75, 80 knots, while also trying to give the aircraft a little break here and there and slowing it back to that 55 range so we don't overstress the airframe. So yeah, it was definitely a two-man maneuver the whole way out. So Joe's monitoring the power and the airspeed. I'm trying to bounce inside and outside to make sure that our rate of climb we have will be sufficient to clear that ridge line that we needed to clear. At one point, we actually had to do a little bit of some S-turns to buy us some more time, because climbing at 300 feet per minute wasn't going to be the proper gradient to clear the ridge line. So we had to give ourselves a little more time to climb. So yeah, it was challenging, but it was stuff that we could do together, stuff that we trained for. We practice flying heavy, high altitude, hot environment. Usually not all three of those things together, but we practice components of it at all times.
I love it. I love it. And yeah, I kept in front of you guys be like, what are you guys doing? Stop screwing around. Let's go. We got to get back. We got to get more people to get.
Yeah. Yeah. We got our people and we were on the ground, and we were already shut down. Our packs had already offloaded, And I just was part of the people that was counting all the people coming off the aircraft. And the guy next to me was filming with his phone. And as we were counting, and yeah, I think we counted 100 or 101 and a bunch of pets as well. And I just could not believe it was like a circus event. You know, all these people just kept coming and coming and coming off that bird. It was awesome.
Wow. Unreal. Jeez. Did you guys do just the 2 trips, or did you do a third after that?
No, we did a third. Yeah, we did the same as we did that time. We got back, we talked to the colonel, asked all the crew members how they felt, what was going on. We were getting cold gas at that time, so they were filling us as they were offloading, and we were debriefing. And you know, like Joe says, when we got in there the second time, there was a lot more people there than there was the first time. So he took 102 and we took 21 in the Black Hawk.
Oh my gosh.
Sitting everywhere. And we knew that, you know, there's going to be more people this next time. And you know, it was getting later, and the wind was changing, smoke was changing. So we just didn't know how many more turns, but we knew we had at least one more turn. So we got gas and debriefed with the colonel, and we all felt good to give it another try, and we headed off again.
Holy smoke. That is awesome. All right. So now you guys are going in for round 3. Is this where you guys were able to finish it off? Were you able to get everybody on that last trip in?
The third time, we ingressed another way because the other way got a little too smoky. So all 3 ways we went in a different direction. We ingressed into the Mammoth Pools area, different valley. Got in there, same as before, sat down. This time there were less people. There was a couple people that decided to stay. But I think we took 11 or maybe 12 or 13, somewhere in that range, our third turn. And there were, from what I recall, there was a couple, less than 5 people that were worried about their property. It was their motor home, or it was their, you know, awesome speedboat that was sitting in the lake, and they were afraid it would get vandalized or stolen or whatnot. So there were a couple people that said, no, I'm going to stay.
Wow. That's a little. Okay.
It was unbelievable when the crew chief said, you know, that those 2 people, they want to stay. They're going to stay here. It's like, wow. All right. Good luck to them.
Yeah.
But we made sure that we passed to them. This is our last trip. We are not coming back. This is it. Everybody that wants to go, we have room for you, but we are not coming back. And we didn't fill up. Either of us didn't fill up. The heavy loads were the second loads. And the third loads, we went kind of back to what we had done on the first load.
Still the same on the first load. So you had 17 in the back of the 860, and you guys had what, you said 65 or so in the back of the Chinook on that third trip?
We had 37 on the third trip. It was more normal for the third trip. Yeah.
So you're like this, I got this. Oh, I'm good.
After that, whatever, we got this. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no problem. Wow, you guys. Holy cow. Now at this point, somewhere in this side of the story is where you guys were talking with Josh and the Navy boys coming up from Lemoore, because they had gone into different areas, but they were asking about where the smoke is, where the ceiling's at. And if I remember correctly from him telling the story, you guys were up at almost 11,000 feet cruising at some sort of altitude. Is that accurate? I don't want to put words into his mouth.
That was later. So this was the 5th and the 6th that we were doing this, where we got the 3 turns that we did. That was the night of the 5th and then into the 6th. And it was just us. It was just our 2 aircraft. Then
got it. Okay.
We had a couple of days where it was really smoky and none of us flew. We weren't able to get anywhere. We were getting reports of people that we needed to be picked up. No life or death, but people that were stranded. Fire was moving. They couldn't get back to their vehicles. They needed to be evac'd. But it was a couple days later. It was the 8th that the Navy came up and launched. They came and spent the night here in Fresno, and then we worked out that there was 3 crews. That it was the Chinook, the Army Black Hawk, and then the Navy Seahawk.
Wow, man. Like it's crazy to think that you guys just pulled, 260 people off that one area in Mammoth Lake, and you're not done. Like there's still people that you needed to go back and get. That's awesome. That's crazy. Holy smoke. guys, this story is just amazing. Like, you guys going in, the amount of people, the lives that got saved from your crew, from days of working. That day in particular, 260. Good night. 100 and, what'd you say, 103 on the aircraft on that second load? Maxing
102.
everything out. 102. Let's go with 102. I like the 106, but I'm going to go with 102. Over 100 people on the aircraft, and you guys are taking off max power. Oh my gosh. You guys, that's insane. I'll tell you what, before I let you guys go, Joe, let me start with you. Is there anything else that you would add to the story? Are there lessons learned that you would love to pass on to other people that could be in this situation? What do you got?
Yeah, one thing I always like to point out is that as much of a large part in the success of this mission that the flight crews presented, it would not have been successful, and it definitely would not have gone as smoothly if it wasn't for those support personnel that we had on the ground. Our maintenance personnel that provided, strong working aircraft, all the way to our operations people that stood up a triage center in the middle of the night in a matter of 20 minutes, and it had 260 some odd people in and out of that facility, triaged out, injuries gone to the hospital, families notified, people getting rides to where they needed to go, into hotels, that sort of stuff. And their coordination with all the local EMSs, the 144th Fighter Wing, Coast Guard, all those people, it all culminated into this being a successful mission.
Love it. Absolutely love it. I totally agree. There is something to be said about when you have an amazing support system on the ground that you can talk to. It is, thank you to everybody that supports us, that goes out or that's back at home plate, setting everything up for when we leave and get back. I'm totally on board with you with that. Well said. Well said. Brady, as the second in command of that aircraft, and I'm going to say that you took the harder flight out. I'm just going to throw that out there to you. You know what? You might have worked a little harder than Joe over there, but we won't tell him. We won't tell him. Brady, what would you tell everybody out there that again, in your situation, advice to pass and lessons learned?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I just we were in the right place at the right time, and we can't thank enough the people that allow us to do that, right? So the California National Guard, the Army, the taxpayers that fund our time and training so that we are ready to respond in a situation like this. And our families, the ones who are willing to give us up for days, hours, weeks, months, years at a time so that we can go train and be prepared to do this. There's a lot going on behind the scenes, and we genuinely are grateful and appreciative of all those people.
Love it. Again, well said. Well said. All right, Kip, to the 60 driver. Like, and I love my 60, by the way. Let me throw that in there as well. All right. Love me a 60. I've been on the Chinook, but I love me a 60. I'm just going to say that. Kip, what advice or lessons learned would you have out of this mission that you would love to pass on to everybody else?
Well, we're very privileged to have been in the right place at the right time and had the opportunity to put our training to good use and help these people in their time of need. But whether it's the California Guard or the California Air Guard or the Navy Reserves or anybody that's here serving California, male and female, they're here every day ready for this to happen. And again, we're happy that it was us, and we were glad that we got to perform, but there's somebody there ready to help you out anytime here in the state of California. Hundreds ready to go anytime.
Love it. Love it. It's always nice to, hey, that's what the tax dollars paid for, right? For us to have some fun in a helicopter, just saying, and save a bunch of people that get caught in fires. Just going to throw that out there. You're welcome. Gentlemen, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me today and just telling your story, your side of it, and what happened out there, giving us the ins and outs, man. This has been amazing, and I cannot thank you enough. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us on.
Anytime. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are out of here. Go. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Real Rescue Podcast. please take a minute to like, subscribe, and hit that share button. I'm pulling chocks and taking off, but before I go, if anyone out there has a rescue story they would be willing to share, I would be humbled and honored to have you on as a guest. Or if you have any questions about rescue or anything else we talk about here, send an email to jason@therealresq.com. That's Jason at TheRealresq.com. You can also check us out on our web pages, therealresq.com, our Facebook page, and our Instagram page @TheRealRescue. Again, a special thank you to all of you staying on the watch today. Always remember, when that SAR alarm goes off, those in distress are praying for a miracle. They are going to get you. Until next time, fly safe and swim hard.